As you can tell by the title, today we're going to be chatting about all of the books that I have purchased or accumulated to fill my 2025 TBR. If you've been subscribed to me since 2024 and you heard me say that I'm going on a book buying ban until I finish my physical TBR, no, you didn't. New year, new me. I've accepted that I have two hobbies. One is reading books and one is buying books. So do with that what you will. Fun fact, I actually filmed my first ever booktube video in this very spot. This is like a full circle moment. We're bringing a booktube from 2024 into 2025. Without further ado, I have a lot of books to chat about, so let's just get started. So I kind of have these categorized by genre, but you guys know I'm not the best at categorizing by genre because a lot of times I blindly buy books and I actually have no idea what their technical genre is or even what they're about. If somebody I trust has rated it 5 stars or 4 stars, the premise that they explained sounds interesting to me, I'll buy it and then completely forget everything about it. So anywho, we're gonna start off with the fiction/romance category. We have 5 books that classify as either fiction or romance, and I'm gonna start off with my current read, which is Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. You guys know that this book was one of my most anticipated reads for last year, but I ended up not buying it just because I have a lot of books on my TBR that I have not yet read, and 2 of them are by Sally Rooney, so I was like, okay, I don't need to buy it, don't need to read it, but my friends actually picked it for our in-person January book club, so I used that as an excuse to get it, and I'm on page 100. Again, the same way I felt with Normal People. Why is it bad and why do I not like it, but why do I like it? That's how I'm currently feeling about this one. And I would love to tell you what it's about, but if you've read a Sally Rooney novel, you know that you really can't explain what it's about. It's just basically characters and weird writing, but I can't recommend it or not recommend it yet because I have not finished it yet. But this one I have finished. This released sometime earlier in January. Pre-ordered this. This was one of my most anticipated reads for the year, and I got it and I read it immediately and I loved it and I give it 5 stars. So I can heavily recommend this one, especially if you like romances with little spice. There are 2 scenes in here, but they are very brief and they don't like take away from the story at all. You still have good relationship development and character development. This takes place in a small town between 2 feuding 2nd grade teachers. If you are an eldest sister, you're gonna love this book. And if you like found family in small towns and you want an MMC that does it all, who has tattoos, loves kids, is a 2nd grade teacher, rides a motorcycle, and ends up living next door to his nemesis, you're gonna love this. And this was my first 5-star read of the year. So Beg, Borrow, and Steal by Sarah Adams. Please read it. If you want like a feel-good, hallmarky, cheesy romance, but with a little bit of depth, but not too much depth to make you like cry or anything, this is perfect. This is Sarah Adams' best book yet. This is the 3rd book in the When in Rome series, but you can technically read them in any order. I also enjoyed When in Rome and Practice Makes Perfect. The only reason why I didn't quite give those ones 5 stars were because they had a little bit of pacing issues, but this was actually written perfectly. There was no pacing issues whatsoever. It was not dragged out at any moment, and that's actually funny because I'm pretty sure this is her longest book yet, so I don't know what it was about this, but this hit and I gave it 5 stars. It's not one of those like, oh my gosh, this is a masterpiece 5 stars, but it's like, I know that this was a cheesy romance, but there's absolutely nothing that I would change about it, and I really enjoyed my time reading it, and it's a comfort 5 star. Next, I actually just went book shopping with my friend a couple days ago, and I saw this at our secondhand bookstore and I picked it up. It is Mrs. Nash's Ashes? No. It is Mrs. Nash's Ashes. I feel like everybody says Mr. Nash's Ashes, but it's Mrs. Nash's Ashes. Wow, that's actually really hard to say. Okay, I'm not gonna try to say that again. I haven't drank enough coffee to try to say this again. Okay. Mrs. Nash's Ashes. This is kind of giving me similar vibes to Sarah Adams just based off of the description because it is a summery feel-good book. I think Destiny read this last summer and she rated it nearly 5 stars. She said it was really, really good. And so ever since then, it's been on my radar. So I saw it there and I was like, I know it is actually not summertime at all, but I actually like reading summery romances during the wintertime for some escapism. I'm running low on my summery romances. So I was like, okay, I can pick this one up. I think it's about a girl going on a mission to deliver this person's ashes, but ends up like finding love along the way. Again, could be very wrong because I'm not very good at actually knowing what kind of book I'm buying. You guys know, if your favorite booktuber or somebody you really trust recommends you a book, you're just gonna buy it and not ask questions. Next, we have Ready or Not. Again, I got this at our secondhand bookstore. I love my local bookstores. You can get a bunch of books that are basically brand new for half price. So I got Ready or Not there. I've been seeing, whenever this book initially came out, a lot of bad reviews. So it kind of went off of my radar. But now now I'm seeing a lot of people rate this either like 4 or 5 stars. People didn't like the pregnancy trope. That was their gripe with it. But this book is about the pregnancy trope. So if you don't like that, don't read this book. But for me, you guys know I have 3 kids. I have nothing wrong with kids in books. I have nothing wrong with pregnancy in books. Everybody on this earth has come through somebody who is pregnant. I get if you don't want to read about it, that's totally fine. I have nothing against that. Read what you want to read. But I feel like it's not quite fair to give a book a bad review because you don't like the pregnancy trope whenever that's what the book is about. Like, just don't pick it up if you don't like that. This is a 5-star prediction for me, and it's one of the books that are in this pile that I'm actually itching to read. I'm pretty sure it's about a girl and a guy who have a one-night stand. I love those books where you can kind of go on a journey with the character, meet them at their worst, and then at the end see them at their best. Really excited to read that one. Next, I don't really think this is romance. I think this is more fiction. The Collected Regrets of Clover. This is about a death doula, and she helps people on their deathbeds until one person is like, you need to stop living your life around death and go live your own life and have your own experiences. I saw one of my favorite booktubers, Delaney, mention this, and we have such similar book tastes. She's the one who convinced me to read The Nightingale based off of her video of reading The Nightingale, and it's actually my favorite book of all time. So if she rates something 5 stars, consider it purchased, and this was one of those. Moving on to the Christian category, I got 2 Christian books. One is a nonfiction and one is a fiction. So for the nonfiction, I got It's Not Supposed to Be This Way by Lissa Turkist, I think is how you say it. On the back, it says, what do you do when God's timing seems questionable, his lack of intervention hurtful, and his promises doubtful? We all go through trials on this earth. Like, every single one of us goes through something. And at one point in our lives, we're all gonna think, why God? And as you grow and mature, that thought process will change. But still, whenever you're going through some things, just hearing about stories of other Christians going through things and relying on God instead of the world is just something really refreshing and inspiring to hear. So I found this for half off and I picked it up, and it has really great reviews on Goodreads, so I'm excited to read that. Next, I'm really excited about this one because I put it on my 25 to read in 2025 list, but I didn't own it. I found it for half off at our secondhand bookstore. It is A Voice in the Wind by Francine Rivers. This is a Christian historical fiction. I know nothing about it other than it has amazing Goodreads reviews, and I've been wanting to read more Christian fiction lately. It is a series. I have no idea how many books are in the series, but I just got the first one, and I'm not a huge fan of the covers, I will say, but the cover doesn't really matter if the content is amazing, which I am anticipating it to be. This is a 5-star prediction for me as well, and that is it for the 2 Christian books I got. Moving on, I only got 1 sci-fi book, and it is Recursion by Blake Crouch. I recently saw Ashlyn read this in a video, and she gave it 5 stars. I've read Dark Matter because of her as well, and I gave it like a 4.25, maybe 4.5, but she said that this one was actually better than Dark Matter, and she gave this one 5 stars, and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to get into his mind-bendy worlds again. I absolutely binged Dark Matter, and so whenever I feel myself kind of anticipating a book slump, I'm gonna save this one to hopefully save me from a book slump. I've been really good about only buying books that I think are going to be like 4 or 5-star predictions and saving my money for the ones that I'm like, okay, I think I would like this, but I don't know if I'm gonna like it. I won't buy those just because I have so many books on my TBR, but if I am anticipating it to be like a 4.5, 5-star read, I'm gonna buy it. Moving on to the fantasy category, starting off, I actually didn't purchase these. A lovely, kind, beautiful subscriber sent me these books. Thank you so much. Aren't these the most beautiful covers you have ever seen? She got A Song of Silver Flame Like Night, which is the first book, and then Dark Star Burning Ash Falls White is the second book. And this one is a signed copy, by the way. Like, I love you guys so much. I literally have the best subscribers on the planet. Mwah, I love you guys. And to show you my thanks and my love, the very next video is going to be a giveaway video where I go book shopping for you guys and buy you a bunch of bookish merch. I've been saying that this video is coming for a long time, but I actually have already filmed it. I'm editing it. It's just this video is going to go up first, but the very next one is going to be a giveaway for you guys because I just genuinely love you so much. This one is blurbed by a whole bunch of amazing fantasy authors, and I'm really, really excited to read it. This is what the cover looks like, and I think I'm going to save these to read in a subscribers choose what I read video. So if you want to see my thoughts, definitely subscribe if you're not already and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss that future video. Next, Faith read this, and she is a cozy fantasy girly. Like, if you love cozy reads and thrillers, you should definitely subscribe to her channel. You're gonna love all of her book recommendations, and she, I think, recently read this and loved it. It is a cozy fantasy. That's all I know. It has purple sprayed edges. The cover is stunning. So again, at that same bookstore, saw this for only $6, and I was like, why not? I've been seeing it float around BookTok TikTok, booktube, bookstagram for quite some time. I've heard people pronounce it Scythe or Scythe. I think it's Scythe, but this is by Neil Schusterman. Again, I forgot to say the title. This is The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. And the little blurb says, it takes a village to open a heart and just one man to steal it. Love that. But I'm pretty sure that this one is about kind of like a dystopic world where death doesn't exist. They've cured hunger and they've cured all of like the diseases and stuff. So in order to have population control, they have scythes go around and basically people. I don't know if this is a romantasy or what, but I know it's a YA dystopic fantasy, and you guys know I love the YA mysteries, love YA fantasy. I'm not a huge fan of YA romance, but there's something about YA mysteries and fantasies that just get me, so I'm excited to read this one. Going like the completely opposite direction than that, I feel like this, The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang, is a lot more mature and epic. I am a little bit nervous to read this just because I don't think I've ever read a fantasy quite like it, but so many people absolutely adore this trilogy and I am excited to get to it, just a little bit intimidated. Next I have Pure Nessie by Susanna Clark. I have no idea what this is about, but I feel like people who have read this book have no idea what it's about. I don't know. If you've read this book and can give a proper description of it, please let me know in the comments, but I've heard that people, whenever they finish reading this book, they want to reread it to fully understand it because there's just a lot going on and it is a very unique and mystical and magical world. So if I'm in the mood for something that requires a little bit more brain power, but I still want like a fantasy world, I'm saving this for whenever I'm in the mood for that. Now, this book. You have probably read this book or have seen this book talked about, One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. Now, I was putting off buying this book just because people described it to me to be a dark gothic fantasy with tarot cards. I don't want to mess with anything about tarot cards. I don't want that like romanticized or like that's how you get your power or whatever. But then I heard other people say like it's actually not tarot cards, they're just playing cards and there's nothing tarot-ish about it. So I was like, okay, I saw this for half off. I'm going to give it a shot. It is a dark romantic duology, but I've heard that there's actually not a ton of spice in this, so I'm gonna read it and I'll let you guys know how it goes. So if you guys are also on the fence about reading it, I will hopefully be able to influence you one way or another once I do give this a read, but a lot of people really love it. Brief intermission because I actually ran to Barnes after filming this video because I have a couple of videos in the works where I needed specific books for, so I was going to get Kingdom of the Wicked, but I decided to get that one on audiobook instead. So I do have that one on audio, and then my copy of Onyx Storm came in, and I also picked up the second book in the One Dark Window duology just so that I can have that duology completed. And then again, I got the third book in the This Woven Kingdom trilogy so that I can complete that. And there's a trend here. You can probably tell what video I'm gonna film. I got Reckless, which is the second Powerless book. And then I got the entire Prison Healer trilogy. So the Prison Healer, the Gilded Cage, and the Blood Trader. And I think that's it. Is it? Yeah, that's it. The last book in the fantasy category, we have The Lovely War by Julie Berry. Again, this was a recommendation from Ashlyn. She gave this 5 stars and absolutely loved it. And I saw it for only $6 at my secondhand bookstore. So I snagged it and I got it because I feel like this is going to be a perfect fantasy to read in February for like Valentine's Day and Love Month because this is a romantic historical fantasy. And I just feel like that's going to be absolutely perfect. So I think I'm going to read this in February. I think this is young adult as well with little to no spice. So we love that. Moving on. Next category I'm going to talk about is Dark Academia, and I have 2 books in that category. The first one, The Dark Academia, The Secret History by Donna Tartt. This is the book that kickstarted the dark academia genre. It's like a psychological thriller. I don't know if it's like cultish. That's kind of like the vibes that it's giving. I actually have no idea what it's about. I've heard it is not so much a chore to read, but if you're going to read this, you need to be aware and it's not a bingeable book. Like it's going to take you a while to read it and it might not be the most enjoyable, like 50 to 75% through. I've heard people say that it picks up a lot. That's whenever they go from being like, is this like a 3-star to, this is my favorite book ever. And if you've watched my previous videos, you guys know that that is exactly how it went for me whenever I was reading The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I was actually considering DNFing it, but I pushed through, and at the end, it's one of my favorite books ever. Loved it so much. The ending had me gagged and absolutely sobbing. The last Dark Academia book I got is If We Were Villains by ML Rio. I got this beautiful edition in Florida whenever Daniel and I went on our little vacation. edition. I love this edition so much. The normal ones are just basically plain and black and I didn't love them, but this book has been on my radar for a while because people say it's really, really good. Again, it's a dark academia. We have college students. They are in like a Shakespeare class, but each of them kind of take on the persona of the character that they are acting as. So there's 6 students. It's like a then and now timeline and it's a mystery and it kind of just unfolds on what actually happened. So I'm really, really excited to read this. I love whenever books kind of bend genres. So if this one is a dark academia mystery with some thrilling elements in it, I feel like that is a recipe for a 5-star read. Let's just go into the mystery thriller category since that's kind of similar. I have 2 books to share. Let's start off with just the one on top. We have Listen for the Lie. I've heard this is amazing as an audiobook, but I found this hardcover version at my secondhand bookstore for half off. And I was like, why not? I used to be a paperback fan, but now I'm starting to get into loving hardcovers just because now that I leveled up and I got another bookshelf, I just feel like the hardcovers look a little bit better on my shelf. They are pricier, but if I see them for half off or on sale, then I'll get them. And this is one of those. It's blurbed by Alice Feeney, Stephen King, Alex Michaelides. This is like a podcast thriller, and I absolutely loved the second book in the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series, and that was a thriller with a podcast element, and I ate that up. And I think this is like an adult version of that, so I'm really excited to give this one a read. And the final book in that category is The Fury by Alex Michaelides. I read The Silent Patient by him and it was a 5-star read. I got this as a part of the half off hardcover sale at Barnes & Noble, and look, it's a signed edition. I feel like I need to get it, so I did. Moving on to the last category, we've got historical fiction. I have 5 books to share. The first one, Daniel got this for me. It is Homefront by Kristen Hanna. Kristen Hanna is my favorite author, and I didn't have this one and he knew that. I know nothing other than I expect to sob whenever I read this because Kristen Hanna has made me cry with every single book that I've ever read from her. So if I'm in the mood to cry, I'll read this. The Winemaker's Wife by Kristen Harmel. I've heard people compare her writing to Kristen Hanna, and Daniel actually got this one for me as well. It takes place in 1940 at the dawn of the Second World War, and then it cuts to New York 2019. I feel like I might save it for the springtime just because the cover is giving kind of spring, but I don't know. Next, The Kite Runner. This is like a classic, a modern classic. I feel like I might have read this in high school, but I have absolutely no recollection of it. It takes place in Afghanistan, I know that. It says the unforgettable, heartbreaking story of the unlikely friendship between a wealthy boy and the son of his father's servant caught in the tragic sweep of history. The Kite Runner transports readers to Afghanistan at a tense and crucial moment of change and destruction. A powerful story of friendship is also about the power of reading, the price of betrayal, and the possibility of redemption. This sounds like it's gonna be a masterpiece and a 5-star read, and I can't believe I haven't read it yet. And then lastly, I mentioned this in one of my previous videos. I got these 2 books. They're both by Amy Harmon. I have A Girl Called Samson, which takes place in the American Revolutionary War, where she dresses up and pretends to be a man so she can fight in the war. And then this is Where the Lost Wander, and this takes place in 1853, and it's more Western themed. Again, this author is compared to Kristen Hanna in terms of the genre and the writing style. Goodreads reviews on these are immaculate, so again, saw them for half off. Literally every single book that I've mentioned I either got for free by trading or by getting half off at secondhand bookstores. I have not paid full price for a book in months and months and months. Pat me on the back for that one. But got these 2, really excited to read these, but not quite sure when I'm going to read them. I feel like I might save them for the summertime, but maybe that's wrong. I don't know. But that's it. Those are all of the books that I have acquired to restock my 2025 TBR. If you've read any of these books, definitely let me know what your thoughts were, and if you want to see me read any of them in a reading vlog or some sort of video, let me know as well so I know how to order like which books I should read first, because there's a lot here to go through. Before you leave, definitely click the subscribe button and check out the description box where I have all of my other socials listed and all of the other channels that I've mentioned. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I pray that you have a blessed day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!